I get so excited. Sometimes you have to tell me, Don, calm down. But that's okay. We have dreams and goals and those things, those books inside of us. And it's good because what happens is that each and every one of us, we have a story from the day that we became conceived in our mother's womb. The story started. Now, what story? My story is not your story. Your story is not the next person's story. But you do have a story. Sometimes we say, oh, I want to get on that. I want to be on that stage. I want to write that book. I want to be able to collaborate with others. But I don't have a story. I never suffered with cancer. I never lost a child. I never lost that job. So I don't have a story. Yes, you do. You do have a story. And as a author, and I was listening to Mr. Terrence, I was listening to my good friend Terrence Leffridge, because every time I hear someone give my introduction, I have to look around because I'm like, who are they talking about? They can't be talking about me. But those who do not know my story, and I will share my story with you, and I have my mom here, so can you please give my mom a round of applause? I have my brother and my beautiful sister-in-law. Give them a round of applause. I have the love of my life, Edith Tinkin. Can you please give her a round of applause? That's right, because we have to learn to celebrate each other. But my story goes like this. And before I share my story, I want to share one thing with you, and it's this. In Africa, they have citizens within their kingdom. They're called griots and jolies. So what are their responsibilities? Their responsibilities is to keep the history of the village. Now, I know we have the kings, we have the queens, we have the royals of the village, but their job is to keep the history. And they will gather up all the little children, and they will set them by the fireplace, from the youngest on up until those that are elderly. And they will begin to share their stories and histories, and they will share about what their great-great-grandfather did, and what the king did, and what the queen did. Why? Because they wanted to ensure that their history was not lost. Well, in my own family, we have storytellers, we have griots, we have jolies in my family also too. I was thinking about it because I tracked my family history back to the, I think, 1850s. You see, when you begin to dig into your history, you will begin to learn some stories. And with my family, we came from the Louisiana Delta area. I think I was told that B.B. King, he lived right there on the Mississippi Delta, and then he moved to Memphis. But there's a great history there. See, my grandmother, she was a storyteller, just like over in Africa. My grandfather, he was a storyteller. He was a griot. He was a jolly, just like over in Africa. So by default, me, my brothers, and my mom, she's a storyteller. She used to tell us stories, when we were babies, and we'd be like, wow. But I was listening to my father one day. My grandfather one day. And my grandfather, he would gather up all the little children and he would set them by the open flame heater. Now, if you're from the South, how many of you are from the South? Okay, so you know about that open flame heater, right? It keeps you warm, and if you stand back too far, it'll burn your leg. I've got many burns that way. I have the marks to prove it. So here, my grandfather, he gathered us and we would sit by that open flame fire. And he would begin to tell us about when he was a little boy and how he would wake up at 5 in the morning just to go and catch a truck, and he would go out into the fields of northeast Louisiana, and he would pick beans, and he would pick the okra, and he would pick the tomatoes and all those different types of vegetables. Why did he do that? Because he had a family that he needed to take care of. So he's setting us down, he's telling us these stories. And he said, Donald, Vincent, that's my older brother over there, Vince, He said, and my mom, she shared the story with us too. He said, there was this time when the circus came to town. And your father, he was so big, he was a bodybuilder. And there was this one attraction that they wanted your father to take part in. And I said, Grandpa, tell us, what was it? Well, they had this bear, the circus had this attraction where they had the bear, and the goal was that whoever could pin this bear down for 5 seconds, they would win $100. Now back then, $100 was just like $5,000. That's back in the early 70s. So everyone, they went to my father and said, Lump. They called my father Lump because you ever seen those little sugar lumps? Well, he used to always get those little sugar lumps and he'll. So my grandmother, if you're from the South, my grandmother, she had a nickname for everyone. My name was Don Don, Vincy Boo. My father was Sugar Lump. So the sugar lump dropped off, but she kept the lump. So they said, Lump, I know you can do it. Everyone knew my father because he was a bodybuilder and was strong, a stature man. They said, we know that he could do it. So they challenged my father, say, look, you can do this. You can win this $100. And my father was like, well, let's see what happens. So he accepted the challenge, and I want many of you this afternoon to accept your own challenges. But my father, he stepped into the cage where they had the bear. Now, the bear was muzzled. They had already clipped the claws, but there was still the power from the bear's swing that can break ribs. So my father, he stepped into the ring, with his big muscles and, kind of like, I ain't gonna like Terrence. Make sure you get some of that vitamin water, like Terrence. So here I am. So here my father is. He gets in there. The trainer, the bear, he's over here. He's trying to get, he's ready. So my father over there and everyone, how you see on the wrestling and the boxing where they kind of, massaging your shoulder. You got this, Lump. You got this. Yeah. Hubba. I got this. Right. So here it is. The trainer, he let the bear go. The bear started charging my father. My father, he jumped to the side. He grabs the bear. He slams the bear down. He gets on top of the bear. And say this with me. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My father won the $100. He pinned the bear down for 5 seconds. So as a little boy, about 7 years old, I asked my grandfather and my 7-year-old boys, Granddad, were you scared? He said, no, I wasn't scared. I said, why not? Because I knew your father could do it. How many of us have someone that believes in us even before our own dream kicks in? See, sometimes we have to believe someone else's dream until our own system kicks in, but also you cannot see the picture when you're on the inside of the frame. If you had just had that opportunity to step back and see what they saw in you, then your whole perception would change. So we ask ourselves, okay, how do I become the best you, the better you? BTBY, becoming the better you. How do I become that? Well, first thing that we do is that we recondition our minds. You see, we have been told and we have been trained so many times from birth, oh, you can't do this. Be quiet. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. How many of you have ever been told that, right? That a child should stay in a child place? And in certain instances, yes, there is, because, right, whatever happens at home, right, or you get the, I ain't saying nothing more, but mom and dad didn't play, whatever happens at home stays at home. But when you begin to recondition your mind, and this is your story, you recondition your mind by telling your story. See, when you recondition your mind, what takes place is that you realize that your mind has been renewed and has been transformed. I heard this great story about these scientists. They took these They took this dog out and they put him on a leash. Now, why would they do that? Because they want to find out how long does it take to give up. Some of us have been told that our dreams and goals are nothing more than an expensive hobby, right? But how long does it take for us to just give up? So they put the dog out on a leash and they put this big, nice T-bone steak out there. Now, if you know anything about a dog is going to pull, they're going to growl, they're going to do everything that they can to get to that steak. They couldn't get to it. The dog could not get to it. They did it second day, third day, round about the fourth day. They noticed something had changed. They noticed rather than the dog going after the steak, the dog had just completely given up. So the scientists, they said, you know what? Let's take the steak and let's bring it in and let's set it right at the paws of the dog. Well, guess what happened? Because the dog had been conditioned that he could not do it until he did not even go after the steak. In fact, the dog did something just opposite of what they thought would take place. He stepped away. So they made their notes. They came back on the fifth day and they said, okay, let's see what happened. What we're going to do, we know that the dog has given up. So we're going to take the steak, we're going to bring it in, we're going to put it at its paws, and let's see what happened on the fifth day. Day number 5, same thing. They put it out there. The dog did not go after the steak. So they said, you know what? Let's do the ultimate thing. Let's take the dog off the leash. What do you think happened? He did not only get it, he stepped away from the steak. We have an opportunity to go after things. Notice what happens in your life. Sometimes there's people and there's businesses that might come into your life in order to help you to achieve those things that you want to achieve. If you want to become a co-author of a book, or if you want to write your book, there's people, myself, Terrence, there's Belton, there's people in here, there's a social media queen herself. There's people here, there's vendors here in order to help us, in order to get to our next level. But because we have been told that we can't do it so many times, what takes place is when they come into our life, guess what we do? We step away. Why? Because we could not see the picture because we were inside of the frame. The second thing that needs to take place is that we must just utilize our gifts and our talents. You're talking about telling stories. There's some great storytellers in here. How do I know this? Because I've heard you speak to other people. I've heard you speak at your Toastmaster clubs. I heard you sharing with me and others in your sphere of influence. You're sharing your stories. Terry Fellinger shares her story. Sal and Kathy, they share their story. Dana shares his story. Edith shares her story. John shares his story. These are all Debbie Jacobs shares her story. These are Kim Dombrowski shares her story. She shares her story. Norma Crest shares her story. Fred Bergeron shares her story. All of these Toastmasters, Jacqueline Powell shares her story. So many people here have made that conscious decision in order to share their stories. You know what Winston Churchill said? He said that courage is facing your fears over and over again without losing enthusiasm. And I know there's some great storytellers here that are willing, ready, and able to share their story. How many of you are ready to share your story? Say aye. You see, that's almost all of us. And those that did not say aye, they're contemplating, they're thinking, oh, my story might be too embarrassing. I don't want to put my story out there because other people might laugh. Well, let me share something with you. I stuttered for over 38 years. My mom will testify to that. I stuttered over 38 years. Said, wow, but you don't stutter now. When I became sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I decided to take that next step, first thing I did was I joined Toastmasters. And Toastmasters, if you have not took a part in it or discovered, there's some great Toastmaster friends here. They would tell you about Toastmasters. But then I sought the training of others. I needed to be where they wanted to be on the level that I wanted to be. Do I want to be a Mr. Les Brown? No, but I do want to be a Donald Toast. I've trained with Mr. Les Brown. George Hazard has a story. Luciano has a story. Lavina back there all quiet, she has a story. And Adrina has a story. Maria has a story. These are Toastmasters. Terry Fellinger has a story. I see all my Toastmaster friends here. They have stories. Gene Caggiano has a story. They have, let me tell you about this guy here before he comes on. How many of you have seen Red One? Right? Jane Costa has a story. He was in the movie. His story is continuing to build. Miss Angela has a story. So when we realize that we have a story and that story was given to us not to sit on, but to share with the world. And when we do that, we feel fulfilled. We are doing what we are called to do. We are completing our assignment. Debbie Jacobs has a story. That's why when we connected, I knew that she had a story. No comments. She didn't tell me all the personal stuff, but you know, she told me something. Look at her comment. He like, well, what she told you? She didn't tell me the personal story. She just told me about you guys' wonderful son, how he just got married, and how she was, you guys were flying over there, and praise God that you guys raised some wonderful children. Amen. But she shared her story, and this is what we have to do when we share our story. Because it was not given to us, but it was given through us. I'm going to say that again. It was not given to us, but it was given through us. And when it's given through us, then what takes place is that, when you go through something, there's another side. Well, it was given through us in order to help you to get to the other side. My good friend, James Robinson back there, he has a story. Manuel has a story. We all here, we have a story to tell. And the third thing that we must do is just simply never give up. Never give up. Cynthia over there, she has a story. We share these stories. Edith has a story. We share these stories because we want everyone to know, hey, you're not going through this by yourself. It takes all of us. And the third thing is never give up. We ask ourselves, when will I become successful? When will my story end? Well, first of all, your story will never end. But you will become successful in life when you stop asking that question, when will I be successful? My sister-in-law Sharon has a story. My brother Vince has a story. There's so many stories in here, and if we put them together collectively, what takes place is that the world began to look, they began to take notice, they began to, wow, you mean that I'm not going through this by myself? You mean that my child is not the only one that is, I ain't gonna say crazy, my child is not the only one that is giving me, I can't even say hell, no, kids here. My child is not the only one that's having issues. My daughter, my son. You mean to tell me that I'm not the only one that's losing jobs, have lost my job? You mean to tell me that I'm not the only one that have had these mental challenges and battles? You mean to tell me that I'm not the only one that's battling the HOA, right, Shane? But these are stories, and these stories are meant in order to help us grow. Now, when we get through, when we make it through, and we will make it through because that's the point of that word through. When you get to the other side, don't forget about those that are still back there waiting to get through to the other side, but they might need just a little bit of encouragement. And that's where you come in.